My guest right now was the constructor and conductor of pro wrestling's Extreme Revolution in the 90s. He has made an improbable return to the business as the advocate and representative of former UFC champion Brock Lesnar, who takes on Triple H in the main event of WWE Summerslam this Sunday on pay-per-view. He is, at last, Paul Heyman. Paul, welcome. It's about time you show up.
It's about time you had me on your show. I've been chasing you for, 15, 16 years now?
I think the chasing's been going the other way, but it was worth the wait, I'm sure. As I said, your return to TV was improbable. What was the catalyst? What made you do it?
Believe me, I'm probably more surprised than anybody else to have seen me go back. It was the right time and the right place, and obviously when it comes to Brock Lesnar, the right guy. And Brock, when Brock was making his decision to go back, he said, "Are you coming along for the ride?" And, his coattails are so wide. I've been riding them for 10 years, and I just didn't feel going back. And a couple weeks into it, he said, really, you should come with me. And, things are really shaping up nicely. And I just actually, said, okay, let's do it. And it was just a last-minute thing, and everything, the stars were aligned, so I took the shot.
You and Brock have had a relationship, as you mentioned, beyond wrestling that goes back years. You were the co-author of his autobiography. It's just me saying this, Paul, but I'm not sure you would have come back for anybody besides Brock. Is that accurate?
It's 100% accurate. I mean, there are people here that I greatly and deeply respect and admire, but I wasn't coming back into the sports entertainment or the pro wrestling or the WWE business. I was done. I was finished. And, it's Brock. This is truly a once-in-a-lifetime phenomenon. And when you talk about pro wrestlers, you always go for the embellishment and the exaggeration and the hype. Here's something that's a fact. He's the only man in history to hold the NCAA Division I Heavyweight Championship, the UFC Undisputed Heavyweight Championship, the WWE Undisputed Heavyweight Championship. He's a guy with great accomplishments. This is not just some flash in the pan. This is not just some guy that has a quick run. This is a freak of nature. This is a force of nature, and it's a once-in-a-lifetime guy. So when he says, listen, I'm going back, and I'm going back to really have my biggest run, I'd be a fool not to go with him.
Here's the first tough question, Paul. Have they used Brock correctly? I think WWE paid for UFC Brock, but sometimes they book him to be WWE Brock.
Well, the question is, do they understand how to market UFC Brock? They're not in the UFC business. They're in the WWE business, and that's why when I keep on going on television, I keep saying the same thing. You bring a fighter into an entertainment company, and then you get mad when he wants to fight. And that's why when we address Shawn Michaels on TV, I truly believe Shawn Michaels is the greatest entertainer in the history of WWE. But we're not talking about entertaining. We're talking about someone who I'm marketing, and you're supposed to be marketing as a fighter. So I'm not asking for your opinion on him as an entertainer, Shawn Michaels. So do I think that they've marketed him properly? I don't know if they have the marketing ingenuity to market him as a UFC guy, which is why also I think I got tagged in, because they sit there and they say, well, we don't know how to describe him as a UFC fighter. We don't know how to describe him as an MMA guy. Heyman does, but Heyman do the talking.
Speaking of which, you've done some great promo work since going back to WWE. How hard was it for you, Paul, to get back in that rhythm, grab the mic, and boom, boom, boom?
If I were to have been assigned someone else, I don't know how I would have fared, because there would have to be a rhythm for me. There would have to be some sort of a comfort level for me. But this is like putting you with a pair of headsets on and a microphone in front of you and someone saying, talk sports. I would dare suggest, Mark, without blowing smoke up your ass, or maybe blowing smoke up your ass, however you want to take it. But if you were to walk out today, not that you've ever been known to do something like that, but if you were to walk out today and take 10 years off, lay on the beach in the Cayman Islands, and come back 10 years from now, if someone put a pair of headsets on you and a microphone in front of you and said, talk sports, I think you'd be number one tomorrow. And I believe that because that's your natural thing. If you're going to ask me to cut promos for anybody or somebody, I'm probably screwed. But when you ask me to talk about Brock Lesnar, I can go on all day long. It's easy for me. I understand him. I know him. I love him. I respect him. I admire him. It's easy for me to talk about Brock Lesnar.
Now, has there been any trepidation working with Triple H and Steph? They run the show. Do you ever feel like you have to watch what you say?
No, because the whole thing is we're posed against them. So I think they happen to like the fact that someone that has natural tension with that entire family, someone that has a history of tension with that entire family, someone that's had a well-chronicled relationship of opposition with Stephanie is on the other side of the microphone, because the more I bash them, the more popular they're going to become.
Now, does Steph know she got the line backwards, Paul, when she said, "My father's in your rearview mirror," that may have been correct, but not what she wanted to say? And did you notice that while it was going on?
No, I was. It's funny. A lot of people have asked me about that whole scenario at Raw 1000, and I'm just savoring the moment that how many people in life can actually say that Stephanie McMahon straddled them in front of millions of people like a 9-year-old riding a pony.
Well, not too many. Well, just leave it at that. Not too many. We're talking to Paul Heyman of WWE here on 105.9 The X. Paul and Brock Lesnar in the main event at Summerslam this Sunday live on pay-per-view. Paul, do you ever envision Brock returning to MMA, or have his injuries and surgeries just added up?
I think Brock's had his run in MMA. Do I think that if the deal was right, would he do it? I think Brock Lesnar is a businessman that looks at cash influx, and if the deal was right, I think he'd very much consider it. Do I suspect that's going to happen? No, I think Brock had his fill of UFC. I think he proved his point. I think he has positioned himself in the world as a legitimate athlete. And remember, here's the thing about Brock. Everything he has is paid for. The man owns 3 farms, one of which is a compound. His cars are paid for. His houses are paid for. His farms are paid for. His children's educations are paid for many times over. He doesn't need anything. And so at his core, he's a farmer. That's how he views himself. When you talk to him when he's not at the arena, "Hey, Brock, how you doing?" "I'm combining. I'm happier than I can ever be." I'm a Jew from New York. I don't know what combining is. I just know it has to do with farming. But that's what makes him happy. He says, "Oh, I just bought 3,000 acres of canola." I don't know what canola is, but it makes him happy to go out and harvest it. He's a farmer at heart, so he doesn't need to go out there and go back into UFC and prove himself again. He now has the credibility of being a guy who was in, the sports entertainment business that went on to become the most legitimate fighter on the face of the planet today. The number one draw in MMA, and for 2 years, the number one draw on pay-per-view itself, he outdrew WrestleMania. His fights outdrew WrestleMania. So, why would he go back?
Paul, do you ever envision yourself running a wrestling company again? Everyone wants to know, so I'm going to ask on their behalf.
It's like anything else in life. It would be like me asking you, do you envision yourself opening up a hockey team in Pittsburgh? And your answer would be, well, of course not. Pittsburgh already has a hockey team. But, if Mark Cuban said, "I'm opening up the Pittsburgh market," or if Donald Trump said, "I'm opening up the Pittsburgh market," or Vince McMahon or Ted Turner or Warren Buffett or anybody else said, "Hey, I'm going into Pittsburgh. I'm taking over Pittsburgh. I'm going to set up a new hockey team there. We're going to go head to head. We're going to take everybody on." And they turned to you and said, "Would you do it? And here's the deal to do it. And here's the freedoms that we're going to allow you to do it." I bet you would do it, or you would at least consider it. Do I think it'll ever happen? I don't know. I don't predict that it will happen. If the deal's right, if the money's on the table, if the check is going to clear, if the networks are in line, I'm game to do it. I'll take anybody on.
Now, So many say if Paul Heyman came back and ran a wrestling promotion, wrestling would get extreme again. And I always say no. I always say Paul Heyman would come up with something different. I always say Paul Heyman would stay ahead of the curve.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and here's the proof of that pudding. In 2002, when I was the lead writer for SmackDown looked nothing like ECW. There were, ECW's concepts were not barbed wire and broken tables and bloodshed and beating up women and cursing and shoot promos. ECW's concept was making new stars. And the people that we had the access to that weren't in WWE or WCW were people that needed certain smoke and mirrors, and the best way to mask their weaknesses or to accentuate their strengths was to implement that style. But the style was not what ECW was at the core. The core of ECW was getting over new talent. So when I wrote SmackDown in 2002 and 2003, it didn't look like ECW because I had different talent and different budgets to work with. If I were to start tomorrow with a blank piece of paper and a multi-million dollar budget, it would look nothing like ECW did in the 90s because ECW was a product of its time. Extreme or hardcore wrestling was a product of its time. The concepts that we did then were innovative or new or different back then. I would look for what is new and innovative and different today, and I dare suggest that it would look nothing like ECW. If it did look like ECW, it would not be imaginative. And I think, if anything, I'd want to come up with something that just feeds on the imagination and is innovative and totally state-of-the-art.
What's it say about wrestling and the agendas being served when people like you and Jim Ross are not in creative roles?
It just means that we're nonconformists and we're unwilling to conform to the system to change it from within. That's the key to anything. Here's the big question, and I will certainly date myself, which at times has been pleasurable, but I will date myself when I give you these analogies. And anybody who's under 45 listening to this right now is going to sit there and say, who the F is he talking about? But who really changed the system, Jerry Rubin or Abby Hoffman? Jerry Rubin got into the system, changed the system from within, implemented change, made political contributions that the right people elected to office in the states of New York and New Jersey and Connecticut, changed the system, changed the laws, lobbied the legislatures from within. Abby Hoffman died on a river, smoking pot, with no political connections, and never truly changed the system, except he went down as, he got an obituary in the New York Times as being a great protester, So if you really want to change the system, you have to conform enough to the system to get inside of it and change it from within. I think Jim Ross did that for many, many years. I think Jim Ross has changed the system. Jim Ross implemented a system in talent relations in terms of recruitment and in terms of development of talent that to this day cannot be matched. I changed the system from within WWE when I wrote SmackDown, and then, throughout my contributions in the first part of the last decade, and I had enough of it. And if either one of us wanted to change the system badly enough, we would conform enough to get inside the system to change it from there. I just think we're both two old war horses that don't want the political battles and just would rather say, well, we can do it. If you want us to, tag us in.
Everybody still talks about the original ECW. Everybody still watches the original ECW. I know I do. Was there a turning point for ECW? One moment when you said, Paul, this is going to work. We're really on to something here.
The moment the first three-way dance with Shane Douglas, Terry Funk, and Sabu ended, and the audience chanted the name of the promotion, ECW. And when the audience chanted ECW and not Shane or Sabu or Terry Funk or thank you, Terry, or any of the various people that were in the match, but thanked the promotion itself and branded the promotion as their own, at that moment I knew we had hit.
What was your favorite act in ECW? I know you don't like to play favorites, but which one did you personally enjoy watching most?
I loved watching the development of the Raven character. I found it fascinating that here you had a performer at the absolute top of his game, his absolute peak. He was never as good. He was never as good before, and certainly never reached the level of performance afterwards. That was his height. That was his peak. And here's a guy at his peak who is telling a story about being beaten by his drunken father, who is telling a compelling story that you should feel sympathy and empathy for this guy. But the manner in which he presents his case and the frustrations that he takes out on the baby faces was so heinous that he never got cheered. People never chanted Raven's name, no matter how brilliant his performances were. To watch the artistry of Scott Levy's performances in that 1995 to 1997 period, to me, was awe-inspiring. I put his performances right up alongside Mick Foley's and Steve Austin's when they were in, and they did those legendary promos. Scott Levy did 2.5 years of legendary promos. I loved watching Taz's character develop, and everyone, both in the business and out of the business, as fans and people inside the industry, believe he was the toughest guy in the industry. And to be honest, I thought when Rob Van Dam truly hit in 99, 98, 99, and 2000, when he was really the guy carrying the promotion, I loved watching him interact with the crowd. And again, this is a cop out because you asked me for one name and I'm giving you several. But when the Dudleys would go out there and get heat, man,
that really personal up close heat.
Yeah, that was great because they took. See, here's the brilliance of the Dudleys, and here's why I think Bully Ray is the greatest thing in TNA, and here's why I think Bubba Ray Dudley and Devon were, in my opinion, the most magnetic tag team of the past 20 years. And here's the reason why. They went out in front of an audience that was very, very smart to the inner workings of the industry. And those people who came in that weren't reading the sheets or on the computer got smartened up by the other people. Oh, see that guy over there? Well, let me tell you about this guy. So everybody in the audience got smartened up to what was going on real fast. And within 2 minutes of the Dudleys being inside the ring, they had these people that thought they understood. They were watching a show, ready to kill them, ready to fight them, ready to line up in unison and riot against them. They took the smartest audiences in North America and turned them into rabid, raging fans that believed it was real. That's an art form. Who else could do that today?
Paul, we all got into wrestling way back when to be on TV. I did it a little. You've done it beyond anyone's wildest imaginations. What's it like to be in the main event at SummerSlam with your friend and protege Brock Lesnar this coming Sunday?
It's blissful. I'm having a blast with Brock. This has been a really interesting run. It was totally unexpected, as I said, especially by me. We're having a blast doing this, and it is the main event, and it is the second biggest show of the year, right behind WrestleMania. And here's the best part of it, and I mentioned this yesterday on Twitter. You look at any match going into the main event of a show like this, and usually you can pick the winner. You can tell where they're going. I know it's happening here. This is what's going to happen. Maybe this, but maybe they do it this way, but here's the end result. Nobody has this one. Nobody can call this one. Nobody knows where we're going with this. Nobody really... People have predictions, but everybody has a different one. Shawn Michaels will do this, or Stephanie will do that, or Heyman will do this, or Triple H will do that, or Vince McMahon will be involved. Nobody knows. Nobody really knows. And people are guessing about it, and they're having fun guessing about it. So the funniest thing is, and I'm the first one to tell you, I'm going to be 47 in September. I shouldn't be on television. I shouldn't be. Should be a 21-year-old guy cutting these promos. There's just no 21-year-old guy that has a relationship with Brock Lesnar right now, so I'm the guy that they tag in to do it. But as updated as I always say this business should be, as progressive as the industry needs to be, as forward-thinking as everybody in the business needs to become, this has been the most old-school angle of them all. And the reason why is it's old school. Nobody knows what we're doing or where we're going. And that's what makes it so fun to me.
Paul, it's been a pleasure. I hope we get you on sooner, not later, next time around. Have fun on Sunday, and we'll talk to you soon.
Please don't make me wait another 15 years to talk to you on the phone. Please.
What a BS artist you are. That's Paul Heyman. I'm Mark Madden, 105.9.